Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new little series I'm going to be doing. I'm starting to do now tutorial videos on Final Fantasy XIV, and later I'll be branching into Guild Wars 2. The reason why, well, at the moment I just don't have time to record Let's Plays a lot of times, but I still want to be doing videos. So I went and thought, what could I do that I have enough experience in and know enough about to actually show off and stuff, and I have nearly 2,000 hours in Final Fantasy XIV, and all but 4 of the jobs, we don't count Blue Mage, that's side quest stuff, not an actual job. I have nearly 2,000 hours and all but 4 of them at level 90. So I think I know enough to be able to show off and do tutorials. And I'm going to do a basic starting the game thing later, but we're gonna start off with a beginner's guide to playing tank, because I've played tank more than any other job at this point. I started as Dragoon, but my main is a tank. My main is, in fact, a Dark Knight. As to why I'm doing Warrior, that's the job I'm leveling right now, so yeah. So, we're doing this in the first Heavensward dungeon because I have access to all of the various tools, and I figure it'd be easier to show off if you can see everything up to level 50. So, when it comes to tanking, your goal is to get the enemy's attention and to make it so that they're attacking you and not the other party members, especially not the healer. You want to be the target of the enemy's aggression. And to get this, you have a couple of tools. The first and most important one is your tank stance, which you can ignore my hotkeys. I have it set up the way that works best for me. This differs depending on which tank you are. For Warrior, it's Defiance. You turn that on and you will start to gain enmity. And then it changes to Release Defiance, so it tells you if you hit it again, you will turn this off. And what you want to do at this point is you run forward and you pull enemies. So, the way I like to do this personally is use the ranged attack, which I have set to R. Now, later on, this particular dungeon is too low level for us to have this ability. Later on, you will get gap closers, so you can rush forward and use that to get things going a bit faster, but in the early ones, the pre-Stormblood stuff, you will have your ranged attack to throw something. Dark Knight doesn't have this, though, in the same way. It differs from tank to tank, but generally that's how that works. And I'm doing this with duty support, so I'll have to play a little bit differently. Generally, the way I find works best is you use your ranged attack, then you get the enemies to group up around you, and you use your area of effect attacks to make sure they stay focused on you, because there's a lot of enemies, the AoEs will make sure they keep wanting to damage you. Because the thing with your tank stance is you have to be continuously doing damage, or your enmity will drop and they will go after the other party members. And just when you are tanking, at first, don't feel like you need to go and actually be tanking every single thing in the universe at once or anything. Do what you're comfortable with and what your healer can successfully heal you through. If one or two mobs is the extent of what you feel comfortable doing and or what your healer is getting you through without much trouble, then do that. And that's generally how I like to handle things with the average mobs. Now, when it comes to boss fights, dungeon bosses, a little bit different. This next bit is more of a rule for DPS, but in general, if there's 3 or more enemies, your AoE attacks are your best bet for doing damage, because you might be a tank, that may be your main objective, but you are still responsible for doing damage to be able to get the party through the dungeon in a reasonable time frame. We're not talking about the higher level content like extremes and savages, because despite all the time I've played this game, I have barely touched those. I've done the Realm Reborn on extremes, not counting like 2 of them. So I don't have the experience to speak to that. But you can see that we're taking quite a lot of damage here, so this is a good opportunity for me to talk about another concept that you need to get familiar with as a tank: mitigations.
I have my pride.
Mitigations are, as the name would suggest, an ability that enable you to reduce how much damage you're taking. Now, in a lot of cases, you'll want to save these for an enemy ability that you're going to run into called tank busters. Basically, it's a special super attack that bosses have, which is designed
I have my pride.
to whack tanks for a lot of damage. And mitigations make it less of an issue. And you will generally have a couple of mitigations. If you look at your ability bar, you'll see this, but you have a few powers that they seem to do similar things, but all at once. Now, which ones you have depends on which level you are, obviously. All tanks will have Rampart and Reprisal to reduce damage you take and reduce damage enemies deal. But then, as you go up in level, you'll get a few specific to your particular tank. I do not believe I have the specific to warrior ones just yet, however. And furthermore, we're just about to do the first boss, so you get to see some tank busters probably. Another thing to keep in mind, however, as a tank, you control how useful the rest of the party is. With the bosses, unless they're among that elite cadre that will summon mobs, the general 1-2-3 combos are your best bet. As with the bosses, you'll keep aggro on them well enough. And you see stuff like that where they're turning away to go after someone else. That's not a failure as a tank. There are bosses that have specific mechanics where they will target individual enemies. And you don't really have an ability to stop that by super tanking them.
Taste my lungs!
It's not really something that's within your capabilities to deal with. And notice how
I have my
this
pride!
particular boss is generating all these area of effect things that I am dodging. That's a thing you need to keep in mind. It's the tank. Just because you're the tank does not mean you need to eat all the attacks. If you dodge wherever you can, it means the healer has to spend less mana healing you, and also because there's an expectation of the healer doing damage. That also means
Taste my lungs!
that the fight would go faster because the healer can spend time doing damage as opposed to trying to keep your ass alive. And unfortunately, I did not get a chance to showcase this here just because I, in general, don't use these, but there's two more concepts to talk about with regards to basic tanking. Healing and mitigation, because all the tanks, sorry, not mitigation, invulnerability. All the tanks have individual abilities that let them heal themselves to some degree. And some of them will come with some healing potency in their 1-2-3 combo, like with Warrior on the number 3. If you do your 1-2-3 combo on the third step of that with Storm's Path, that will give you a cure potency of 250, which is peanuts in the grand scheme of things, but it can help keep you alive until the healer can do the rest of it and get you up to strength again as far as your health goes. All the tanks also have an individual healing ability that they can use. The Warriors is not that good in terms of overall healing. At least the Thrill of Battle one you have at this stage. They get another one later that's just a flat 1200 cure potency, but that's not till level 58. Thrill of Battle here, it increases your maximum HP, which can keep you alive for a little bit, but compared to stuff like Equilibrium, you could argue it's not that good. There is also something called an invulnerability, which is an ability that lets you, well, not die. And there you see what happens if you don't pay attention. The enemies will go after the rest of the party because they got aggro on them because you're not hitting them. I might not need to do this, but when it comes to tanking large groups, my general approach is I like to throw in one AoE attack and then move on to the rest of them. So I make sure everyone gets some damage so they stay going after me, no matter how far ahead I'm running. Don't know if it's necessary, but that's how I do things. Finally, there is the invulnerability. The warrior is somewhat special in this regard. They get their invulnerability at level 42. All the other tanks get it at level 50. And they all do something different, but like the Paladin, you just can't take damage. The warrior is also can't take damage, but it makes it so your HP can't go below 1. There's the Paladin's just a flat out no damage. The most heart attack inducing one for healers, on the other hand, is the Dark Knight. Which, if you invoke the Dark Knight's invulnerability, you die, and you become undead. Then, if the healer does not heal you up in time, you die for real. All of the invulnerabilities last for 10 seconds, and have a 4-minute cooldown. They are instant cast, but bear in mind, there is a slight tick where if you take a blow in that period between when the tick occurs and when the invulnerability takes effect, you will still die, which is something I have personally experienced. And as far as tanking basics go, those are basically it. And you shouldn't worry too much about having to be an incredible badass right from the start or anything. If that's something you are somehow concerned with, trust me, we've all been there where we're tanking not particularly great and we get the entire party killed. I have never had anyone give me grief over it. Legitimately, it probably won't be a problem if you have to take a few more attempts to beat a boss. Just take your time, learn your mechanics, and you'll be fine. Just like I said, pace yourself. Don't grab too many enemies if you can't handle it or the healer's struggling to heal you. Keep an eye on that sort of thing and you'll be fine. Anyways, thanks for watching my first tutorial. I'll be doing some more basic tutorials in this game. I'm thinking next will be healer. After that, I'll do the various DPS jobs. I'll get into more advanced things later, and a starting the game guide. And advice for being able to stick to it, because I know a lot of people struggle with that. And I love this game and would love for there to be more players. It's been Dark Phoenix Gaming, and thank you for watching my How to Be a Tank in the Final Fantasy XIV Beginner's Guide. See you next time.